on the SHO, there's going to be seven fasteners, four nuts, and 3 bolts. The other things about these VF250s is these studs are mounted in, and these studs will have to be lined up just a little bit different on the other gear cases. You might have to turn the drive shaft to line up with the power head to get the splines in perfectly. Pretty much all the gear cases, the drive shaft lines up first, then the shift shaft. So, which is always important to know, because if you get the splines in and it stops, then you know that and you can't get the gear case all the way up in there. Then you know you need to line up the shift shaft. You don't want to over tighten or force the gear case back into the engine with the shift shaft not lined up perfectly. It should really go in like butter. Nothing's forced. Put these back together, and if it is, then we're in trouble. But now, for instance, this particular situation, it happens a lot. The stud like this stud here is twisting out of the housing now, the midsection, and it's coming off. So that's going to be a little weighted. Once I start to take off the gear case, then that's when I'm going to remove this at the same time, because you're not going to be able to remove it right now. So it's all loose now. We'll have to fix that later. This is a reusable plate that it just catches the water. Any bubbles or anything hits that little divot there on the anti-ventilation plate and pulls it away from the prop. So that's a must. If this falls out or it's missing, you really have to make sure you get something in there, because it'll heat up the hub of the prop with air bubbles, and it'll compromise the hub, and sometimes that's one of the causes of a spun hub on a prop. Now the VF250s, if it's a 25-inch shaft, then it does have a anode. But with the short shaft, and there could be lots of disturbance in the water, being a flats boat, they like to have that plate, because the short shaft has a lot of torque, and it'll create a lot of disturbance, and that disturbance will heat up a hub and spin props. And there are washers under here, on these studs, that you have to remove, because if you don't, they like to roll pretty far and disappear. The last thing you need is to lose these washers. So gather the washers. It all centered in there. Pinch that in there. There we go. So there's always a little rust, especially with these VFs that collect in on there, but it's nothing to be alarming unless there's massive pieces stuck in there. So there's all normal so far. Everything looks good. Take a look at the drive shaft splines. Nothing's tweaked or bent. No extra rust. This is a really important grease point for the VFs series. Is this drive shaft? You really have to grease it the drive shaft splines. Keep it from getting stuck and lock into power head. They are highly corrosive at this point. So if you don't grease it or do your service every 300 hours or 3 years, it will get stuck, you know, and you'll have a hard time getting it out. This is your speedo connection. I always grease that O-ring just so it gets in there nice and easy. So put the gear case back on the same way. Drive shaft lines up, and then your shift shaft lines up. And if there's if it doesn't lay flush against the housing, then you want to make sure that your shift shaft is going to be placed perfectly. Well, unfortunately, with this situation, there's a couple other issues with this job. The jack plate is compromised. One of the fittings are leaking, and the jack plate won't go up. And the trim and tilt motor needs to be serviced. And in order to do that, there isn't enough space between the steering and the transom, and to put the gear case on, it'd be quite difficult because it's not trimmed all the way up. So as of right now, until I get those two items resolved, I'll have to wait to put on that gear case.